Hi there. Welcome back to my channel. Today is actually another special video. I'm doing another collab. For this collab, I am joined by Blurred Colors Arts, Sky the Golden, Val Kitty's World, Electric Bunny, His Name is Akin, and Art YSN. Thank you so much, Akin, for putting this on. It was so much fun. For this collab, we all picked characters that we really liked and we gender bent them. Who should I gender bend? I know. How about the professor from the Powerpuff Girls? Big Me, bring in my next victim. I mean guest. Here we have one of the Ever After High girls. I never actually got into this show, so I actually don't know who she is. So if you know who she is, leave a comment down below. I think her skin will be perfect for this though. Well, Big Me, take her away. To prep this doll for customization, we're going to follow the usual steps. Cut her hair off, remove her head, and wipe her face off with 100% acetone. I like to cut it as short as possible to make it easier to remove in the end. Once you have it all chopped off, we're going to take a hairdryer and heat the back of her head, and then we're going to yank it off. This is when I realized that somebody had already removed her head because it was missing part of the neck peg, but I've never removed her head, so I guess she just came like that. Once it's removed, we're going to take a screwdriver and we are going to scrape out the inside of the plugs and we are going to pull it out with a pair of needle-nosed pliers. Now for this process, you can use a pair of tweezers, but I find this to be so much easier. Once you're done, go ahead and shake her around here. If there's any glue in her head, that's actually what I'm doing here, which is kind of weird, but it helps me find the last little bits. Like that. Gross, gross booger piece. Ugh, it's just so nasty, and it sticks on everything. But once we have all her hair removed, it's time to remove her face. Go ahead and take a Q-tip soaked in acetone and just swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. No more face. This is definitely one of my favorite spots, just because they look ridiculous when they don't have a face anymore. Once you get the majority off, go ahead and take a piece of paper. That is not a piece of paper, that is a napkin soaked in acetone, and wipe off the remainder of the paint. Unfortunately, her face did have a mark on it, and I just couldn't get rid of it. So we're actually going to use this Cleo Denial Head, which actually matches this body almost perfectly. Once you have her coated with 2 to 3 layers of Mr. Super Clear, it's time to sketch in the face. So for the professor, he kind of has big round eyes, so even though Cleo has kind of the cat eye look, I'm trying to give her as big and round of eyes as possible, so I'm really fighting with this mold. For her eyebrows, I decided to give her kind of square rectangle shaped brows. Once you're done with one side of the face, go ahead and copy it on the other. Now we're just going to do the normal steps, filling in the scleras and adding additional colors on top. For the whites, you always want to try to add as many layers as possible because white actually doesn't build up very quickly. It actually dissipates extremely easily with Mr. Super Clear. And this is when I realized that I actually didn't color in her other eyebrow. So let's fill that in now. So Professor Utonium has these little lines on the inside of his eyebrows, so I added them. I don't know how well you can see them, but in person it shows up quite well. Once our eyebrows are nice and filled in, we're going to take our white colored pencil, fill in underneath the eyebrows, the bridge and the tip of the nose, and the Cupid's bow. Never be too afraid to add too much white because it does dissipate, again, really easily. Now for her lips, I decided to give her nice red lips because every character in the Powerpuff Girls is always sexy if they're a girl and kind of normal if they're a guy, and since it's a girl professor, she needed red voluptuous lips. Once her lips are all colored in, we're going to add on the blushing. So I'm taking red chalk pastel and a brown chalk pastel to give her kind of a sun-kissed blush look, and the brown is to kind of contour the edges of her face so it has more dimension to it. Now, with this process, you do end up covering some of the work that you've done as her eyes, but it honestly is so much better to do this after you put the eyes because you actually know where it should be instead of drawing the eyes afterwards. Because if you draw them afterwards, you might not have blushed the right spots. Once all the blushing was done, I took her outside and sprayed her down with Mr. Super Clear. For her eyeliner, I decided to go with black to give it kind of a pop, but I also decided not to give her eyelashes because none of the Powerpuff Girls or characters actually have eyelashes, save for maybe one or two, and I thought the stylization would look a little bit better. Also, when you are filling in the face, never be afraid to flip her over. It makes it so much easier to get the opposite side of the face than your dominant hand. So for me, it's easier to draw on the left side of the face because you're not dragging your hand over to fill it in, if that makes sense. So I like to darken the nostrils, so I take a pencil and shove it up their nose. It adds a little depth to the face, but it isn't 100% necessary. Now from here on out, we're just going to follow the usual steps, brighten the highlights, darken the colors. For here, I am filling in her eye whites again. As you can see, the color is drastically different after one layer of Mr. Super Clear because it kind of removes a lot of that sparkle. To add more depth into her eyes, I'm adding a lighter brown around her pupil and a darker brown around the edge of the iris. This creates an illusion of depth to make her eyes look more 3D. Now we're just darkening up the blacks of the eyeliner again. Now, it is best to do this slowly over time instead of all in one go, because if you put too much pigment on any given level, you might actually rip it off on your next layer, which is not very fun to do, and I've done it a few times, and it's actually really sad because you usually have to wipe the whole face. Once you've gone as far as you can with the colored pencils, I like to move on to paint. I prefer using watercolor and gouache paint. The upside of both of these types of paint is it is water soluble, so you can actually wipe them off the face, or you can change them and they dry a lot flatter. The downside again is they are water soluble, so if you do not layer Mr. Super Clear afterwards, you can accidentally reactivate it and smear it off the face. Now for the white of her eyes, I'm actually using the colored pencil and just wiping off the pigment from it, as you can kind of see in the corner right there. Now this is a good tip to use, just don't try to use the pencil right afterwards or it will smush. One of the other positives of this is you can actually use a dry colored pencil to actually chip away the outside of the paint, since it is just watercolor paint and not acrylic, which actually does let you make very sharp lines with the eye whites. So the red I was using just did not have enough oomph to it, so I ended up pulling out my palette of watercolors and I used the darkest red on it. It actually wasn't that much darker, unfortunately, so her lips are a lot brighter than I wanted them to be, but it was a lot more smooth and matte than the colored pencil was. And I could also get in that tiny little crack in her lips, which is almost impossible to actually get to. Once you have finished with all the watercolor, go ahead and spray her down again with Mr. Super Clear, and we're going to add the eye shines. For the eye shines for her, I decided a one line and a single dot. And of course, she needs her lip shines, because what is a Heliophobiant doll if it does not have a lip shine? And this is her face. So cute. Wait. Her face is missing something. Pearly shimmers. For this, you just kind of pack it on where you want it. So I'm kind of brushing it all over the face, and then I'm going to take a Q-tip and I'm going to pack it onto her cheekbones. When you spray her down with Mr. Super Clear, a lot of it is actually just going to dissipate. But when you do it, she gets all nice and sparkly. And this is what she looks like afterwards. Now it's time for the final step. We are going to darken the eyeliner with some black acrylic and add on the glossy varnish. I like to put the glossy varnish on the eye lines, lips, and sometimes on the pupils, but today I'm just doing the eye lines and the lips to kind of breathe more life into the plastic. And this is the final look for her face. I think she turned out super cute. I'm glad I didn't give her eyelashes in the end. Now we just need to reattach her head to her body. Since the neck peg is actually missing a part, we actually don't have to heat it up. You can just take it, squeeze it on the temples, and shove it back on her body. And now it's time to work on her clothes. These are the patterns I'm using. They're both from Delightful and DG Requiem. They'll both be down below. We're going to use these 3 fabrics. I'm actually not going to use the stretchy white one. I was going to make her stockings, but I decided against it. First, we are going to use the light folds pattern to make a long sleeve button-down shirt. Honestly, this is like the best doll pattern ever. I love making this shirt. It's a little complicated, but it looks so good in the end that it's definitely worth the extra effort. Sorry for the footage here. I didn't realize that filming a white shirt on a white background would make it so hard to actually see anything. As you saw, I had trouble even picking up a piece because I couldn't see it. And this is how the shirt turned out. The tie is from the boy uniform, and I think it looks so cute on this shirt, and I think it's perfect for the professor. Next, we have to make the jumper. Now, in the final shots, you'll see that it's actually missing its straps. I decided I didn't like the straps too much just because they did not work correctly, but it's pretty much the same exact pattern. I just chopped off the strap part. So these are the pattern pieces we need from that pattern, and we're just going to lay them out on our fabric, and we are going to use movie magic to cut them out. And here are the pieces all cut out. You just have to remove them from the pattern pieces and lay them out. You need 1 front piece, 2 side pieces, and the center front and the side backs. Now, as I said, I am removing the straps, but we're still going to glue around all those edges. And this is what it looks like glued down. Now, if you wanted to keep the straps, it looks absolutely great. I just did not like how it looked in the end for her, so I ended up removing them. This pattern's actually really straightforward to construct. The instructions are actually really easy to follow, and it's only 6 pieces, so it's actually pretty easy to put together anyway. And once you have the skirt and the top, you do need to attach them together, and this is what it looked like in the end. Of course, it is missing the straps, but I think it turned out to be a perfect tiny pencil skirt for the professor. Now for the last piece, we are going to be making her a lab coat. I am using the jacket pattern from DG Requiem again, and I am going to be using just 3 pieces: the main body, the sleeve, and the wide collar. All the other pieces look really nice if you're making a better jacket, but it's just a lab coat, so it doesn't need everything. Once they've all been cut out, you can see I actually added a little bit additional length to the bottom of the main jacket. I actually did that so it can be an even longer lab coat. And this is when I realized I accidentally cut 2 pieces instead of 1 here. Now, once you have the correct piece cut out, you're going to glue around the edges, just like this, and you'll have a nicely finished collar. Now you're going to take the main pieces of the jacket and stitch up the back seam. Again, I am so sorry for shooting white fabric on a white background. I did not realize at the time that it would look terrible on camera, so next time I will definitely use a colored background if I'm using white fabric again. Now we just need to attach the sleeves, and this is what the tiny lab coat looks like. I think it's so cute. I've never made a tiny coat with this pattern, and honestly, I loved it. 10 out of 10. Great pattern. Now that she is completed, it is time to give her hair. I could not figure out what kind of hair to give her for the longest time. Should she have long hair? Should she have short hair? I just could not make up my mind. In the end, I decided short hair would probably look best because the professor actually has short hair. It makes her look more like a businesswoman than a professor, so I'm not sure if I like it. Maybe I'll change it. But as you saw, I drew in a guide for her hairline. The professor's hair is made solely out of triangles, so I gave her a widow's peak and triangle sideburns. The triangle sideburns didn't translate quite well, but her widow's peak definitely came across. To get her short hair to stick, I am using Elmer's Glue All and yarn flocking. To make yarn flocking, you actually just take yarn and you chew it up with a pair of scissors. It takes forever, and your hand is going to hurt. If your hand doesn't hurt, you haven't chewed it up enough. But in the end, it actually looks really cute, so is it worth the effort? That's really up to you, but I do like how yarn flocking does look on dolls. Now, when you are adding it, you are going to add more than one layer. It's never going to stick with just one layer, so coat the whole headed one layer of glue, stick on all of the hair, and then once it is dry, I usually give it about 12 hours to dry, stick on a second layer. Now, in between the layers, definitely brush off the additional yarn flocking, or you are going to get kind of a ratty mess underneath it all. With this step, you do want to work kind of quickly though. I took way too much time and half the glue actually dried on me. So you want to work a little faster than I am in this scene. I'm actually sped up at 3 times the speed, so you can just imagine how slow I was going. Also, don't do this when they're wearing clothes. I was kind of dumb and I did it when she was dressed, and it was a terrible decision. I had to use so many pieces of tape to get all the tiny hair off of her lab coat. And once this step is complete, she is done. So let's take a look at what she looks like now.
Professor Utonium wanted to create the perfect little boys, so she got herself a book of nursery rhymes. After learning what boys are made of, she mixed the snips, snails, and puppy dog tails together. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction: Chemical X.
Well, here she is, Professor Utonium. Now that you're here, what would you like to do? Oh. Well, let me know if you want to see me make the Powerpuff Boys. Don't forget to check out everyone else's videos. They will be linked below and up above. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!